Welcome to the Realist Show Out, where we talk about the latest issues and topics to affect our community. Do not forget to subscribe, do not forget to like, and do not forget to leave a comment down below. Today we have a very special guest. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello Jermaine, my name is Jennifer Foster.
Thank you, Jenny, for joining us.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to be talking about the Power Tower, and we're going to be exploring this phenomenal creation, how you created it, why you created it, and the impact it has on our young people and children. So first question really, what is the Power Tower? What made you come up with the Power Tower?
Well, I spent a long time working with people over the years, and as I work with people over the years, I saw that even though people are different, they do follow a very similar pattern. And this pattern, once you understand it, really helps you start to understand who you are and what you need to make sure that you feel good about yourself. And once you feel good about yourself, your mind will automatically clear, and then you can get on with doing your life in the best way you can. So first of all, when I was working this pattern out, that I based on evidence of over 2,500 people I worked with over
that's a lot of people.
Yeah, and they're all different. They're all different sorts of people.
Could you tell us about some of the people they were?
Yeah, sure. I first started out when I was quite young, working with long-term unemployed, and they were between the ages of 18 and 60 in the areas of Brixton, Stockwell, and some in Chelsea. And they had to do a course with me that was run by the government, and no one wanted to be there at all. But they had to do it, otherwise their benefit would be stopped. So after a couple of weeks of doing this, I decided to throw away the manual because it just wasn't working. And I decided just to work with the people to get them through the week in a productive way. So they all would turn up very angry because a lot of these people weren't very good at school, you know, they had difficult lives. And it wasn't in their comfort zone to sit there in a room listening to me or each other at all. So what I did was I just really let them relax, get to know each other, and we talked. And I found out by the end of that week, and they said they were all different races, ages, men, women, and also different careers as well, because some people in that room did have good careers but just had bad times, so they were stuck again. They all started to get to know each other, and they all, by the end of that week, in 5 days, had become friends and had relaxed and weren't angry and they weren't anxious, and that had happened in 5 days. So that made me think, because on paper these people shouldn't have been able to do that, you know, because you're told if you've got an issue, that's kind of, not that's it, but it takes a long time to get over it and all this sort of stuff. But I found at the time that because we all cared for each other and we were making sure each other was okay and we listened, I think they all felt nurtured. So that got me thinking. Obviously when the course finished and they all went about their lives again and they all went into their own communities again, often they lost contact and it kind of went back to the same. But just for those 5 days in that room, I saw that virtually anyone can actually be really good in themselves and really realise that they do have a potential. So that was really when I found out really about these three here, which if I turn this round here, was about if you're having love and care and you feel safe to be who you are and you're not in emotional or physical pain. I call these your animal power needs. If you have them, you can kind of start to sit and be. All right, but if you didn't have them, if you don't have them, if you don't feel safe to be who you are, and you don't feel you're in pain and you're not getting love and care, people don't have these. And if you don't have these, you tend to go right in your mind and start to get angry and anxious and etc. etc. But I saw how over 5 days, all these angry people could become calm, and that wasn't doing things like meditation or any trick or technique. It was just by being with each other and listening and caring. So I didn't make a tower then, but I noted that. And then later on in my life, I worked with a company called Remploy and also a few charities where we looked at putting people with disabilities into work. And once I started to do that sort of thing, I found out that if someone had a job that was in line with who they are, when it comes to their preference, their talent, that sort of thing, they then got a sense of, here we are, identity, belonging, meaning and purpose, because what they were doing was in line with their self. And then again later on down the line, this took 25 years to work out. I found out these other two ones which are important. It's the ability to express yourself, express your stick self, and the fact that you understand. Because if people can't express themselves and they don't understand, if you haven't got these two, you often get, again, very angry because you're blocked. You get very blocked. So after about 25 years of just writing this down and working with people and everything, I decided to write a book. I wrote a book and I started to give it to people I was working with, because meanwhile I'd set up my own business to do this, because there wasn't really anyone else doing this, not really. So I wrote a book, and then I showed this book to people, and people were saying, well, what about this and what about that? So then I started to do videos to fill in the gaps. So then I designed 6 online courses that people can still do.
Amazing.
And then one of the people I was working with, he had a real interest in carpentry. And so I said one day, to give him something to do, how about making this for me? So I drew it for him because it was part of the book. And he made the first one, and it was quite big. It was that big. And he gave it to me, and I had it in my office in the corner. And then another day I had a young chap come in to see me who was angry. He was a musician actually. And we were talking about anger, and I was trying to explain what anger was, and the fact that maybe, you know, if he was unblocked, it could come out, he could express himself, and then we can see where we are. He wasn't really getting it, and I wasn't really getting through to him. And then I suddenly saw this tower that this chap had made me in the corner of the room. So I picked it up and I gave it to him, and I said, look, if you don't have that one, if you don't have that one, if you don't have those 3, that's going to make you angry. And I've got copper blanks that I use to show blank too. So we used this, and he picked it up, and I've also used it with people who take drugs, because if people take drugs, they don't normally have those 3. So you can just pick it up and feel that's what you're missing every second. If you don't feel safe, if you don't have love, that's how bad you feel every second. So I was talking to this about with this chap, and I could see, because he could physically pick it up, look at it, take it to pieces and examine it, he suddenly said, I've got it now. I've got it. And he walked out that room, and I kept in touch with him, and he wasn't angry again. So I kind of started to realise that because this is a physical thing that you can see and you can play with, you don't really have to think about it. You just play with it and focus on it. And here on this stick is who you are. So this is like your totem pole, and it's got on it your talent, your preference, that sort of thing. And if you know what that is, you can then build up these good feelings around yourself. And then that's how protected your little stick self is. It becomes protected with golden feelings. I'll talk about the right words in a minute. So I developed it because I realised that to work with people properly, it's important that they can see how they are, what they are, and how they feel. And then you can pick it up, and that helps your neuron paths in your brain understand, because it's a physical thing. Because usually if you're just talking, it's sort of out there, and you and I could talk forever, but unless we actually get to grips with something and feel it, it touches you on a more profound level. So I started to make these. I started to make these about 5 years ago. This is another one. This is another story. This is a person when they have decided to show who they are, and their true colours literally come through. So this is a person, this was made for an individual person, and I make different colours for different people depending on what colours they want. So that's them sort of when they're actually doing their thing. And this one here just shows the process. It shows the process. And what I then did was, later on, I realised that people quite like positive affirmations. And I don't know what you think of positive affirmations, but again, often it's just words, isn't it? And sometimes you're trying to convince yourself, aren't you? You're trying to convince, I am all right, I'm all right, when actually you're not all right. But I thought, well, let's see if I can incorporate a positive affirmation in this as well. And that's when the black words on the white came to be, because the white is literally just words, but they're positive words, like I do, I know, I am, we create change, in a kind and humble way, I can. And if you can actually start to say that, and then understand yourself, understand your situation, and realise that if I behave in a kind and humble way today, I create the feeling of love and care. So you can use this with young people and children, especially to work out, what feels did you make today? What feels did you make today? Given we're human beings, we create change every second. By you and I doing this, we're creating change every second. And if we do it in line with ourselves, our stick self, we then create feeling of meaning and purpose. But if we don't do it in line with our stick self, we don't have that feeling of meaning and purpose. And that's something, as we both know, is lacking these days.
How do they come to know themselves?
Well, what we do is we start with the stick. We start with the stick. And this is the pattern I saw when I was working with all these people, is because people say everyone's different, and they are, everyone is different, but there's a pattern, and often what happens, sadly, is it's fragmented. So if you like walking in the park to calm down, and I like swimming, that's different, isn't it? So I might say, well, I like swimming, so you go swimming and I'll walk in the park. But if it's not in line with what we actually like to do, prefer to do, it's not really going to work. It's going to be fragmented.
So it's about finding out what they like, their goals, their interests.
That's right. Their
hobbies, and then you build from that foundation.
Absolutely. So each
person is different.
Yes, but they have the same pattern. Absolutely. So this person here, this person represents that we're all human. Now that is the same. We're all human. We all need love, care. We need to be safe to be ourselves, and we don't want to be in pain. That's the same. But our T's and P's is our talent and our preference. So talent, people often think, is something that you're really good at. Actually, it's not. It's something that you're good at without even realising. So it's often missed, or it's often not taken.
Overlooked.
Yeah, that's right. And someone might say, well, you're really good at, I don't know, maths. But actually what you might be really good at is planting flowers, you know. So sometimes, especially in schools, if your T isn't identified, you end up going on a career path where it's not in line with actually what you're naturally here to do. So people can get taken away from their stick self. So we look at their talent, and once you know their talent, then you can build on that. And then you look at your preference. So I might like working indoors or being indoors. You might like being outdoors. I might like being lots of people. You might not be. So we build it up. And it's not like being spoiled, saying, oh, well, I don't prefer that. I don't want to do it. It's not about that. It's about understanding that so you can thrive. You need to plant your stick self in a good environment. And this here, this big circle here is your environment. It's in the here and now, on the earth realm. So this is your situation. So your situation, you need to be aware of your situation, and then you need to know how your who I am fits in to that situation, and then you can express your stick self. And then the other ones here is your learning style. How do you learn? That's really important for young people as they go through education. How do they learn? And it's also important in a job.
A lot of schools miss out on learning
massively,
styles, which makes and prevents young people excelling. It makes their education much difficult because the learning styles have not been identified.
Absolutely. And it's getting narrower and narrower and narrower these days. So again, if we look at our little tower, if you don't have your learning style, if that's not in line with that, and your knowledge, this is K, and your knowledge is your wisdom, it's what you know. And if I know, that's going to be hard for me, and I can't express that. If I can't express that, and I can't understand, I won't have these two. And if I don't have these two, I get blocked. So all my negative feelings get blocked, and my stick self can't be itself. and then that affects your mind, and we can talk about your mind in a minute. This represents your mind, but we need these golden fields so our mind is clear. Our mind needs to be clear, and if they're blocked, because I don't understand and I can't express myself, block, all this builds up, but it's blocked. Sometimes it goes bang right into the mind, and that's anger. So what we do first of all is we look at the stick self. That's what we do. And then the last one up here is physical, can I do it? And that's where the mind lives. Now, there's lots of work done with the mind these days, and that's okay, but it's only a tiny part of you. And if you don't have these feels, your mind, at best, will be noisy. It'll be noisy, it'll be living there, and that's when, as we've discussed before, people go on social media, they look for approval from the outside, loads of money, all this, that, the other. And if they can't find that, they'll find other ways of getting that recognition, because all they've got is this. But if they have all these other good feels, then the mind is clear.
What has been some of the impact and positive stories from the Power Tower?
Well, I think the best one was that chap that he just looked at it and picked it up and realised what anger was. I use it with my clients a lot. It's just, how can I put it? It just helps people work out what they need to do next. And once you understand that, then they change their lives. So I've had lots of people. They come and learn about themselves. It helps people a lot with jobs. I've had people who are depressed. Once we looked at it, like one chap right back in the day, he was intelligent. He was young, but he was sitting in a room being a security guard, like watching television all day. He had autism. Very high functioning though, and obviously he was literally in a box all day and he was depressed. But once we looked at his stick self and realised he liked the military, he was quiet, he was shy, he wasn't Mr. Social, but he did quite like to be around people. He liked order, and he was very into his routine. I actually found an employer for him, and that happened to be the admin of a police station. And he got a job there. We tried him out in a job, which is a bit of a long story, but he did this job perfectly. He did this job better than someone who wasn't him. So his talent was being very focused on things, and this job had to get done in a certain way, and he would do it. Whereas you and I might get distracted and think, oh, I'll do it in 5 minutes. But he was on it. And he liked to create order. That was his preference. And he was so good, they thought, right, we're going to employ him full time, we're going to give him another job, because they found out what he was really good at. And he didn't even know he was good at this. To him it was natural, you see. And then they employed him, and so then he was on full pay with the police, and he was loving it. And because he started to build up these feelings here now of identity, belonging, meaning and purpose, because what he was doing was in line with himself, he started to feel better. So then he started to socialise a bit, and his manager said he's starting to play pool in the lunch hour with the other staff, and then he came off his antidepressants, and then 10 years later, his mother contacted me. He was still there, really happy, wow. No depression, and that's just one example. So it's really how people use it, to be honest. Because you can use it for work, like that was that example. You can also look at it to examine what your blanks are. So I might think, well, why am I really stressed all the time? Well, actually, it could be, if I look at my feels here, love and care, am I getting love and care? Actually, I'm not. So if I look at that one more deeply, and I focus on that rather than stress, I can then change my environment. So it helps people change the environment they're in, because that's often a lot to do with it. Yeah,
because a lot of people become products of their environment.
They are.
Unfortunately.
They are, and they think there's a problem with them. And this is where I kind of am separate really from a lot of the mainstream ideas, because they'll say, oh, it's an issue, you've got this, you've got that, you've got the other. And yes, you have, that's true, you have. But what's caused that? Often what's caused that is the environment they've been in. So we've got to have a very honest look at your environment, and people don't really like doing that sometimes. People quite like their little comfort zones. So it's quite tough. Doing this, you've got to be very responsible for your stick self.
And sometimes, especially as young people, you have to learn to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
Sometimes.
Yes.
So that growth and change can happen.
Yes.
Which brings me on to my next question. In terms of your own personal opinion and view, how important is it to have the Power Tower in schools, in PRUs, colleges, universities, even in the adult workplace?
Yeah. Well, I think it's I think it's your first step.
I think it's a fantastic tool. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal tool, and it's very effective. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Yet very easy to identify.
Yeah. I think it's your first step. I think there's not really a first step with a lot of things, is there?
No.
And it's so basic. I said it's quite tough. I think you need a mentor, which is one reason why we might be doing some work together on this, because I think you do need a mentor to take you through your stick self.
To guide you, support you.
To take you through what's your T's, what's your P's, what's your T's and P's today, where are you getting your love and care today. You know, what's it look like today with your identity belonging? Because sometimes in a day, you're not going to get all these. But if you have a mentor, you can say, okay, today is going to be a bit tough. Today, I'm not going to get much love and care because I've got to go and do something I know that's going to be difficult and people are going to be a bit difficult. But the mentor can get you through that day and the mentor can give you that love and care. Do you know what I mean? So I think it's an essential first step for children, young people and adults to think, right, let's go right back to basics. Let's stop trying to fix the problem or paper over the cracks. And I've got all this well-being activities I'm doing, but I still feel
empty or unsatisfied.
So this will fill up.
That's when we start to look at identity,
your
belonging,
true
meaning,
feelings.
purpose,
yeah. And once you
talents, preferences.
Yeah. And I'm going to zip over here now, because once we start to build up these, because this gold tower, I call this the I can tower. I can. It's how you can do it. How you can do your stick self. Once you start to do that, and it is important to have a mentor, because you do need people to talk these through and your situations through. So what the mentor does is talk about that and a situation. It's not a therapy. It's just it's a tool to analyse your situation and to use your brain to do critical thinking, actually, to then change your situation, you know, and then to express yourself. So if you're an adult and you're in a job and you suddenly think, actually, my learning style is I might need, instead of an hour lunch break, I need 2 half hours. That could be something you could then take to your manager, because you've looked at your learning style. You've looked at, when do I start to get a bit stressed? That's just a really general example. So I think it's the fundamental first step that, as wise people have said, if you don't know yourself, then life is very difficult. So I think it's important to know yourself, and that's why it should be in schools, universities and everywhere really, so we can literally grab onto it, because the way society is going at the moment, this stick self is becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and the mind, this thing here, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So all the focus is now mind, and I say that's a bit like fire. You know, it's like do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and the more fiery it gets, the more your stick self almost gets burnt, almost, because we're just looking at this sort of quite intense kind of manic energy, aren't we? Where actually, if we can relax into ourselves, we can still have a clear mind and be effective, but we are gathering up our good feels as we go along. And that's another thing, Jermaine, is this helps you understand that, because it's physical. You can actually start to see, like just today, we all 4 of us are giving love and care. If we didn't have this, we probably wouldn't notice. So just by noticing sometimes what you've got already helps a lot.
Yeah, to build off and work off.
Yeah.
How important is it for young people to have purpose? And what does purpose look like?
Well, I think, in this model, purpose looks like you knowing what you're doing something for. You know what you do it for. Meaning and purpose are very linked. So if you know your purpose, and it can be a daily one, it can be a big one. what are you here for? If you know that, then you've got a real grounding anchor. So as life batters you, because it does, you've got an anchor. It's that this is happening to me now, but I know what I'm here for. I know my purpose. I know and then because I have a purpose,
The meaning, belonging.
I
sense of
have a
belonging.
meaning. Yeah. So the fact that I'm going to eat healthily has a meaning because I have a purpose.
So they're all interlinked.
Yes. Yes.
Each stage is intertwined with each
Yes,
other.
the meaning and purpose is really, really important. That's why these are your animal ones, they're the biggest ones. But these are really important. And I think the meaning and purpose, if you don't have them, then you look outside for it. So that's when people can start wanting to look really, they want to look 10 out of 10 all the time. They want to have a lot of attention. They may cause a drama because they haven't got attention.
What is your advice for young people watching?
My advice for young people would be to understand and realise that you are a very, very important person. You are a unique individual and no one else is like you. No one else has your talent, has your preferences, thinks like you, has your wisdom, and no one else has been in your situations. So as the time goes by, it may be difficult for you because life is difficult, especially if you want to stick to your stick self. But this is really what we're here for. We're here to get all the information we've got inside of us and to bring it out into the world so we can make the world a better place by making ourselves the best we can be. And in order to do that, we need to focus on that in a kind and humble way. It's not about being selfish, but it's about understanding yourself and making sure the situations that you're in will nurture you. And then what will happen is your mind will clear and your imagination will suddenly come to the front and you'll suddenly be able to see all sorts of interesting things you can do. And then once you start to do that, the world does become a better place and quite magical sometimes. So my advice would be to understand that you are very, very important and we really need you to be filled with lots of good feelings, and that will sort out everything.
Young people, you are special, you are unique. It's okay to be not okay, but it's not okay to pretend to be okay. Thank you for joining us on the Realist Show Out. Do not forget to like, do not forget to subscribe, and do not forget to leave a comment down below. Until next time.